Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. This week we're going to have a look at a plugin called Dynameter from MeterPlugs. This plugin was developed by MeterPlugs and mastering engineer Ian Shepherd. So I've followed Ian Shepherd for a while now. I've learnt a lot of techniques from him. He's a very down-to-earth sort of mastering engineer and teaches a lot of stuff for home people to be able to do mastering, and I've learnt quite a lot from him. And when he came out with this plugin, I was definitely interested in grabbing it because I found it would be a very useful plugin for determining the levels of my mix, but not just that. It's more around the dynamics of your mix, how crushed it is, or how much dynamics you have. So the more you limit your song in mastering, the less dynamics you're going to have. And this plugin highlights that, and you can target a nice level there. And you can also change some settings to see roughly what it is going to be like on different platforms and at different ranges there. So you can set it to Apple Music, YouTube, Tidal, whatever you want, and those ranges then going to target that. It has a nice clear colors on it as well to give you a good indication of how your mix is progressing dynamically. You know, obviously green is nice, starting to get red, and darker red starts to become bad. So it's a very simple plugin, but a very powerful one. And it's something that generally I only use in mastering. It can be quite handy to use on your mix bus in mixing as well, especially if you're someone that likes to mix quite hot. Just to make sure that you are not crushing the life out of your mix too much. But pretty much most of the time it's a tool that I'll use in mastering sessions. But I'm going to show you here in Cubase anyway, so that you can use it either in mixing or mastering. But it's something that you're going to apply mainly on the mix bus or the entire song. You're not going to use it to analyze individual instruments. It is definitely a full song plugin to use. So let's go and check it out now. All right, so here we go. We've got the MeterPlugs Dynameter. As you can see, we've got Ian Shepherd's signature here to indicate that he basically came up with this idea and developed it with MeterPlugs. Now, so as I indicated, this plugin here is to give you a good representation of how dynamic your song is. And it measures in two values. It has a PSR and a PLR. And the PSR is peak to short-term loudness ratio, and PLR is peak to loudness ratio. So both of the values there measure the difference between the peak and the loudness levels of your music. The difference is that the PSR is short-term, so it's looking at it in a 3-second measurement, while the PLR can measure the entire song or album, and depends on how long you let the plugin run for or when you reset the value. So you can see here we've also got some colors on the side, and they're marked at these different levels here, and we've got some adjustments here as well. But pretty much these colors are locked to the values here. And as your music plays, it's going to scroll down here in a color bar, and as it progresses out, it's going to change colors, or comes in, it's going to get redder. And what you want to do is you sort of don't want to be sitting narrow in here, because that means you've got very little dynamic range or dynamics in your song, and it's very crushed. All right, so if we have a look at a song here just to get something on the meter, and I'll just play the song. So you can see it starting out there, and you can see we've got it's very dynamic at the moment. It's nice and green, got a little bit of blue there. We haven't obviously played it for very long there, but we've got a nice bit of green going on there. Now, as I said, we've got different settings here, so we can adjust how we want it to look. We can also click and stretch that up and down. We can hold the shift button and we can move our graph in and out if we so wish, or without the shift button, we can drag up and down to expand or compress the waveform. We can obviously click this reset button here to reset it back to nothing. So we start again. If we wanted to do a new song or something like that. So we have our PSR target value here. So this, we can obviously change that if we wish, but we can also use these settings here. So we have some presets that adjust. So we've got competitive, we've got balanced, wide, limited, back to competitive. So you'll see as it's doing that, it's adjusting the width of it, but it's also changing the PSR value. And we also have a platform here. So if we change our platform, it moves these little cursors up here to indicate where the ideal PLR is for that platform. So you'll see like Apple, it's moved out. With YouTube, we bring it back in a bit, and Spotify, we bring it back in as well. So we have a minimum value here. So as the song is playing, this is going to be the minimum PSR level as indicated there since the last reset. So that's going to give us our worst case scenario of what the short-term peak is. So the 3-second value of how little dynamics we have. So as a guide for these presets here in the manual, what they indicate is that if you are mixing or recording, then balanced or wide is probably what you're going to be going for, because they have a target PSR of 14 and 12. The competitive value is more in reference to something that would have come out in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and is probably a very good place to target your music to. And this is more at your mastering stage than anything. And then the limited one is probably the lowest you should go, even though we know that there will be music on the charts that will go lower than that. But this one here is sort of your definitely the loudest we should try and target when we are mastering. So I wouldn't want to go any lower than that if we can avoid it. But we know that some people do, a lot of people do, but that's ideally where you'll go to. So if you're doing mastering, I would be looking at either limited or competitive. Ideally competitive, but limited is acceptable. So as I indicated, the PLR is over the entire song or album. It really based on when you click reset. So it will continue to reflect how long it's been measuring. And there's a bit of a relationship between the PSR, because as I said, the PSR is 3 seconds, the PLR is for the length. So if we assume that you did it for one song and you were going to reset it between each song, if you had the same value in your PLR and your PSR, that means that your song, even though it has dynamics, the dynamics don't fluctuate very much for the entire song. So it means it's pretty consistent from the start of the song to the end of the song. If you have a big difference between the PLR and PSR, that means that you've got some very quiet parts in your song and loud parts in your song over, and and it fluctuates between the two, which means there's big variances in your song. And that's not to say either's right or wrong. It's just that you need to just be aware of that so that you know what is happening to your song and whether you want that. if you want to get some more lows and highs in your song and things like that, then you should be seeing a different value in your PLR, and your PLR should be a bigger number, as in, like indicated here, like a 12 or more, as opposed to your PSR, which is your short-term 3-second one, which you might be targeting around the 8 or the 10. But if you want a full-on metal song to just be screaming from start to finish, then your PLR should basically be pretty much the same as your PSR. And if you find you're getting values that you don't like in this plugin, then you need to go back and make some adjustments to your song. Now, obviously, if you're mastering and the values you're getting in here are before you've done any processing, then you need to go back to the mix, or you need to find a way to use things like expanders or something like that, or parallel processing to try and bring some more dynamics back into your mix or into the master. But assuming that it wasn't that way before you processed it, then obviously you just need to back off on some of your processing in your mastering chain to get the values you want. So again, let's play that song again, and let's just have a look at the settings here. So you can see here, it's pretty green, nice. Our lowest level here is 10. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I've got this plugin on the song here, I'm going to actually increase the clip gain of this song, and we'll see what it does. So you'll see there it didn't make any change. So that basically proves that this has got nothing to do with loudness as such. All right. And you'll hear that the song is starting to distort and compress, but that's happening at a different part of the mix. It's not happening where this plugin is sitting. If I had this plugin on our main mix bus or output, we would probably see a difference, but we're not here because it's not distorting here, it's distorting further down. So what I'm going to do now is I've got two different songs entirely, and I'm going to show you a comparison of the two. So I've got two different songs here, and I've got the dynameter on both songs to give you an example of what I'm talking about here in what it shows on here. So I've got the same settings on both, totally identical, and we've just got two different songs. The songs are going through the same output, they're not processing at all, and they're pretty much the same level, fairly close. They might sound a bit different, but you'll hear they're totally different styles of music. One's a lot more heavy, a lot more in your face, and the other one is a lot more subtle. So let's start with the subtle one now, and we'll just see what that looks like. So you'll see this one is fairly dynamic at the moment, sitting in the green there. And it starts to pick up a little bit there, and you can see the contrast of the very dynamic to starting in to get some more heavier lead loud guitars. It starts to narrow down to -9. Now let's have a look at the other song, which is just straight out heavy at it from the start, and you'll see the difference in values. So straight away we come down towards the red there. Getting quite narrow there. So we're starting to push things a little bit there. Comes out a little bit there, so it loosens up a little bit more dynamics. But it's fairly flat sort of dynamics. As you can hear with the music, it is sort of flat dynamics as it is. So that one there gets down to about -7, so it could be a little bit too hot there. We could have backed that off a little bit, but it is that metal style there. So, and you can even see in the waveform there how sort of flat it is. But if we take it back here, we can see some dynamic change go on here. So you'll see this wider there. And the other thing you'll notice there is with this one here where we have that difference in dynamics, we've got a PLR of 11. All right, so that's indicating that there was a lot more sort of movement in the highs and lows there, whereas this one here being more of a metal style, more of a flat, straight up, it's got a PLR of 8 and a PSR of 8 with a minimum of 7. But it's hitting about the same level there. So we basically got very little in the way of dynamics going on there. It's just straight line all the way. So there you go. There is the Dynameter by MeterPlugs and Ian Shepherd. As you can see, very powerful, but also very simple there. So if you are mastering your own songs, or even just want to check how hot or how dynamic your mix is, then definitely check this plugin out. It's not extremely expensive. It's quite an affordable plugin. And as I said, very powerful and extremely useful for mastering. So see if you can get a hands-on demo. I'm not sure if you can or not, but if you can, then give it a try, see what you think. And if you've got any questions or comments, leave them below. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.